This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you in partnership with ministryleague.com. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media and subscribe at benandtravis.com for the free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living.
Welcome in to the newest edition of the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. We're obviously always excited to get together and talk. That's one good thing that we all enjoy. I don't know how good we are at it. You guys out there in podcast land can give us your input on how much you like for us to talk, but we're going to do it anyways today, regardless of what you think. So here we are. I'm Travis Creasy alongside Ben Hayes. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing good. Travis, that's always been our motto is we just talk or do crazy things and we laugh at ourselves. And then if somebody else laughs about it, it's just icing on the cake, right?
Absolutely.
Let's just have some fun.
Will the Thrill, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Trying to get my blood pressure back down from that football game last night, but we are back down, walked away with the W, so no complaints, and a good day of worship on the day that we're recording this. So all good from here.
All right. Well, we're pretty fired up. We actually have two special guests that are kind of, one is rejoining us after a little while, and then of course we've got our guest the episode's about. Of course, Whitney Creasy is in the studio with us, and maybe she could share some stories about our guest today. We might get into that too. That would be a lot of fun. And of course, Whitney's former teacher, Matthew West, is with us from Albertville, Alabama. He is the author, and he said hack author of the book, The Smell of Funny, which is a great title, by the way. That totally grabs my attention because, well, I'll just be honest, I like a good fake fart noise from time to time. And so to me, that tells you how much I've matured. To me, that's a great thing. But it's good to have you with us. Matt, you doing okay today?
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all having me. I'm looking forward to it. Forward to it a lot. But yeah, you're talking about those noises and all. I get to work with 7th and 8th graders on a daily basis. So I feel right at home, at this moment with you saying that. I appreciate that.
Well, there's nothing that breaks the ice with a bunch of middle schoolers and really elementary school kids, and to some degree high school kids, even though they don't want to admit it, than a well-placed.
It's always funny. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well-placed fart noise. So, I have a kinship, reading this book and, the kind of random assortment of thoughts that you put into the book, man, just makes me feel right at home. I'm just going to be honest with you. I was telling you before we went live how much guts it takes to just take, the random things that bounce around inside our heads and write them down for the whole world to see and to read. So, kind of walk us through the idea of the book and where you finally just said, hey, I'm going to write all this stuff down and see what sticks.
Well, over the years, I'm actually a PE major, which is kind of weird, that I guess I went on to write a book. You may, expect that of history, maybe an ELA guy. But I've always enjoyed writing and reading. So over the years, I've just kind of, I wrote a blog for a while, and really I didn't know where that would go. But then people in the community would see it, and it started off with like one person, then 5 people, and then I'd see people at basketball games and couldn't make it through basketball games without people coming in saying, "Hey, that story you wrote really, really hit home, made me laugh. Reminded me of so and so or these days." And I've also done it on Facebook for a while, which I kind of consider Facebook my public profile page, I guess. And I'll kind of see if people, like what I put down or, don't like. And then over the years, I've just kind of collected material and before you know it, you've got thousands of words to put on pages. And but you're always, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, but when you put a book together, there's always some fear in the back of your head because yeah, I guess I'm probably a pessimist more than I am an optimist. So I was thinking, I'd find them piled up in the streets, burning, or something along that line. But I've had a real good reception with the book, and I've enjoyed hearing from people and how they take it. And I don't know, it means a lot to me because it means different things to different people. Whitney remembers when she was in middle school, which you just read it, and kind of we had that kinship. Because I've got Jackson with Downs. I believe you had a brother, is that right, with cerebral palsy?
Yes.
Right. But yeah, that kinship that you develop with people that you didn't even know you had. So that's been a pretty cool experience.
Well, I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really good. I read it early this fall when school was getting started and when everything was just really stressful at work with all of the new coronavirus precautions that we have to take and just everyday walks of life. It was just good to come home and laugh at something. So I appreciated it a lot. And I was really impressed with your writing. Like you said, I had you for PE.
Yeah.
So I was pretty surprised. Coach West was such a good
Profiling's
writer.
wrong, Whitney. Profiling is wrong.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
No, but the best thing, I wrote this, I wrote a little review for you to post, and I put it in my review. The best part though about the writing is like when I would read it, I heard you reading it in your tone because it is truly written like the way that you would speak. A little bit of sarcasm, and you always getting a little slow play on your jokes, on your punchline there. It was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I appreciated the kind words you had. I really did.
Now, I don't know if the people at home understand, but for Whitney to laugh at something, maybe I'm just a little jealous and offended because she does not laugh at anything that I do. But I would be at home and I'd be breaking down, football film sitting in the living room, and I'd hear this giggling in the background. I was like, is that Whitney laughing at something? So just to throw that out there, for Whitney to giggle and laugh and to bring tears to her eyes, that's a pretty big compliment. If you don't know, there's not a lot of Ben and Travis stuff that she laughs at, unless it's the bloopers, of course. But so
I'm glad it's not just my wife. That's cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, like I was just sitting there thinking, this is the second PE teacher that we've had on the show, so there's something about PE teachers, I guess. And just for clarification, you're not the Matthew West that is a contemporary Christian singer, right?
Well, I didn't want to get into that part of my career, yet. I
Okay.
Pull that back, but since you brought it up, that is in fact not me. I don't know if you've seen the CD, covers of him, but we look similar, but not quite enough to where I could claim that. He's done well for himself. We'll just say that.
But he doesn't have as funny of a book as you do.
I haven't read his stuff. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Well, I like it's in the title of our podcast, the Helping Healing Humor podcast, and we certainly believe in the power of humor to help and to heal. We've all got things in our life that have been struggles, have been hardships, and we've done podcasts about that. And it's the things that are humorous that oftentimes get us through the struggles.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, your son with Down syndrome, and it's really, really phenomenal to me to see kind of the stories that you tell about him, and obviously your whole family, but to be able to connect, that you've got the son that has Down syndrome, who is hilarious, by the way. That's worth the purchase of the book in of itself, the things that obviously he says and the attitude that he has. And, to be able to kind of connect on that my half brother has cerebral palsy, and the things that they find that are so funny, but a lot of times, especially in the case of Bradley, they're just irreverent. To them, it's kind of like, hey, the whole world is my playground, and you guys just kind of have to get over it.
No, I definitely see that. It's pretty much our world revolves around Jackson, at times. But he deserves it. I mean, he doesn't ask for anything. He's he's a joy for everybody. I mean, people hug his neck in church and, just get a kick out of, even if his big thing is he'll give you a thumbs up. He's just one little nub of his thumb sticking up, and people just dig that, man. And that's just him. And, but yeah, it was an eye opener because I when Chrissy and I met, she actually she had 3 kids and Jackson's her oldest. So I didn't really have an idea of what that scope of life would be like. And it's obviously when and you said yours is a half brother, so I don't know the circumstances behind it, but I'd lived 26 years and not understood, how somebody with special needs can fit into and make your life better, and that was cool to see and reflect upon when I was writing those stories. So, and you got to realize the way I write, some of it's true, some of it's not. But in Jackson's part, it's those quotes that he says, and we get a kick out of and laugh at. But he's full of those one-liners, and he'll tickle us, every once in a while. I've still try to write down every once in a while because he'll have the family in stitches, and got to make sure you get those opportunities down. So,
Travis, can you imagine if Bradley could speak? Like, I mean, it would be like you mentioned the word irreverent. Probably, he has such a sense of humor. He cracks us up all the time, and he can't even speak. But if he could, man, the stories, because he laughs right along every one of the stories we tell, and most of the stories we tell to laugh at are because of something Bradley did to Travis, which makes it even better.
Oh yeah, it's a gift. It seems like it's a gift God has given a lot of special needs people that they're a light in all sorts of different areas of people's lives, especially when they really need it. So that's what I
Coach, it's interesting. My wife is a special needs teacher. And I've always said it's been amazing to watch the parents of her students and how special they are, and how just so far beyond what I can imagine as a parent. And so that's so cool that you talk about that in the book and different things. But, your world right there kind of intertwines with my world as far as the special needs go with my wife teaching. So tell us a little bit more about your book for some people that may be listening, kind of ideas, or I guess a little synopsis of what it's about.
Yeah. Well, when Christy and I got married, it brought together, my ex-wife and I had one son, Zachary, and then she had 3 children, and we've had Sawyer since then. So we have a family of 5. And so you can imagine over the years, if you wrote down this crazy stuff your kids did over the years, or, made notes of it, or just how much material you could have. And that's kind of what the book's about. It's not real serious, and then that's kind of what I was going for. And it's a collection of several hundred stories is basically what it is. I really didn't want to write it into chapters. It's just little snippets of life. One may be 3 sentences, one may be 33 sentences, but just to get the story told, it just, obviously that varies. And the guy that formatted the book was actually a good friend of mine growing up, and he suggested, you need to put it in chapters so people have a place to kind of stop for the evening, or a place to get to or whatever. But we were Navy kids growing up, so I think I ended up going to it was well over 10 schools. By the time we moved within a city, changed grades or whatever. So there's a lot of historical type things that happen. And when you move into a place, what I found is all the kids want to see if the new kid can fight for some reason. So I didn't really like to be confrontational, so I would try to deflect that by being funny. And in some places it worked, but I will tell you, in Fayetteville, Arkansas, that does not work. So they seek you out, and but hopefully you don't have a lot of listeners in Fayetteville. But no, that was I was probably about 14 or 15 there, and that was a difficult move to say the least. So Um, I had a brother that's about 18 months younger than I was. I mean, we were just had best friends because we had to be, just we leaned on each other, when we're making those moves. And I don't have any other siblings or anything. And but it gives you different. I guess I have a lot more ways of looking at things that have happened, maybe, from different aspects of life, and I really just kind of pay attention to life in general, and you've probably been in a place where you wish, or you thought it would have been funny to say this in this circumstance, or if somebody had done this or whatever. So a lot of times, that's why I'm saying my work's kind of fictional, nonfiction. So on occasion, there will be things that I'll throw in there that would have been funny if this happened or that happened. And so there are, a couple of those stories, but a lot of it, is factual for most of the story. And then we'll kind of, elaborate and kind of get a little funny and, away from being sensible, I guess would be the best way to put it. But it was a fun book to write.
So let's go back to the comment about Fayetteville for just a second.
My God.
So Fayetteville, Arkansas. I mean, you said that the humor didn't work as well, but then you also said you were 14 or 15. Could it be that at 14 and 15 you thought you were funnier than you actually were?
Oh, I still think that. Yeah. Don't we all? I mean, yeah. I mean, I would do things like take my mom's glasses and put them on sideways, just to try to make kids laugh. But when you start moving into the middle school and high school years, it's really already, the cliques have been established. So when you move into a new place, it's really hard to break into, one of those places. And I don't know if it's a rite of passage for certain cliques to, beat kids up to earn points to, move up the ladder in their particular cliques or whatever. But it always seemed like, we were, you're kind of targeted when you're new, and it was actually better when we moved. The last move we had, I was probably a 10th grader. We moved to Tuscaloosa, and that one was a little bit easier. But I ended up at Holt High School in Tuscaloosa, and still have a lot of lifelong friends there. And I was fortunate we landed there.
You mentioned in one of the questions, feeling like you were floating, after your divorce, and you've kind of mentioned and talked about, but going a little more in depth, maybe, as you've said that you've moved a lot in your life. And I remember in elementary school, obviously I wasn't moving towns, which helped. I still had lots of family had been, but I went to 4 or 5 different elementary schools, kind of changing over and over again, which obviously, once again, is nothing like completely lifting up and moving to another town. But that idea of floating, I think that there's so many people out there right now who can understand the thought of being disconnected. And I guess if you could just speak to, once again, not to go back and talk about something we've already talked about, but touch a little more in depth about how your family and your kids and your wife have helped you kind of connect. And obviously that comes out in the book. I mean, if you had not mentioned the fact that some of these were, step kids, and there's no way that you would be able to pick that up in the stories that you tell.
To that point, that makes me proud that it came across that way, because I don't think of them like that. And I think our relationship's really close with my two, I call them daughters still to this day, and my son Jackson. But kind of going back to that floating aspect, I was newly divorced. I was non-directional. I can't remember when Whitney came through school, but I was characterized as probably a mean person then. I don't, maybe as they kind of got to know me, is a little different. But I think even back when I was a kid, kind of moving around and all, I would keep myself at arm's length, even from like teachers that I knew cared about me, and just people in general. And there's really kind of thing when you're going to move in 3 years, it's easy to kind of keep yourself shelled away from that, because the closer you get to people, the harder it is to leave again. I don't know if that hits home with anybody, but and especially as we got older. When we were younger, younger kids are precocious and can likable and all that, and fit right in. But as you get into your middle school and high school years, and that's not going to end up being, home, it's easy to keep people at arm's length. And that kind of affected me, even into my adult years, and to an extent to this day. It takes a lot for me to let people in close to me, because I think there's just this inherent fear of losing them, and when you were asking the question, I was thinking back to, that divorce time, and being single and not making good decisions. And yeah, I mean, you just really didn't know from one day to the next, how it was going to end, how you were going to begin. And the fact that I could keep my face on and be a halfway decent educator, to this day kind of blows me away. I wish I could kind of go back and apologize to some of those kids, because I'm sure I flew off the handle. I was angered, pretty quickly, but I just, when you're non-directional, it's easy for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, what kind of changed that, and I guess that's the original question was, how did your family, and maybe, you mentioned the fact that you went back and now you're an administrator, how has your family kind of changed that? Or if there's other factors that may have helped you kind of put those roots in the ground and have some direction?
Well, at the time, my mom and dad had settled in Oklahoma. And so I really didn't have any family here. After the divorce, I had my son, but it's hard to lean on a 5-year-old. It just is. And then coupled with the fact that I would try to keep people away from me. But I'm just gonna be honest with you. I met Christy. That was she was a church woman, and just really, you reprioritize, when you're trying to do things to stay in someone's, life in that regard. So, but it was, I was probably hard to break, just to be honest with you. And she had the patience of Job, and hopefully I'm half the guy, she deserves, just to be honest with you. So I hope that's the case. But,
Coach, you talk about how Christy was a church person, a God-fearing person. What did you see in God through all of this, in your life and in your relationship with God in those difficult times as well?
Yeah, well, looking back, obviously, knowing what I know now, that God never changes, and He's right where He's always been and will be and has been and forever and ever. And it was just, looking back, it's amazing how far you can get away from centered and how fast that happens. And you convince yourself that this is okay and that's okay, and I'm going to deal with the pain this way or that way. And pain's kind of a strong word there. It wasn't like I went through something nobody else had. It was just a matter of, maybe I didn't have the resources locally. I had friends and all, but I chose to go a path. I'd convinced myself. We had Zach. I was 19 years old, so the college years then became, get your studies done, get your degree, try to have a successful life. And then, so I really, at that point, I thought, I've got a little bit of money. I never got to do the college stuff. And I really use that as an excuse, to be honest with you. Just kind of, at 47, you can look back and look at your, 25, 26-year-old self and be really critical. And I think that's cool about this season of life, and just really appreciating where you end up. So
is there anything you do differently in everyday life now because of maybe where you were then and because of the things that you've learned through that journey?
Well, you prioritize things differently. That was part of becoming unfocused. You don't prioritize things, and to me, it's God, family, work. And sometimes you let work get in front of family, and that. And when you're with, like, my wife, she can tell me, hey, you need to push this aside. You're starting to kind of go awry with your priorities, which she doesn't say it real strongly. It's how women do. They kind of, they kind of hint and elbow and all that stuff. But, she says it and kind of lets me make my decision. And she's good to do that. But just prioritizing, yourself. And I'm sure I'm in everybody's boat. I don't pray like I should. I don't read my Bible like I should, but I make it an effort to do so. Currently, I'm trying to get through the Bible, but sometimes I'll read 3 nights in a row, and then the next 2 nights we'll have football games and just be wore out. And we can find all kinds of excuses, but now the priorities have obviously changed. And then when you have 5 kids, it's not about you anymore, and you've really got to kind of buckle down and do what's best for those guys. Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. You're going in all kinds of different directions. There's only 4 directions, but you got 7 people in the house. Some days I don't know how we do it, and but that's just a God thing, and I really believe that, and we wouldn't have the life we have without prioritizing God at some point. So that's a good question. I appreciate that.
Hey guys, Travis here. I'm wondering if any of y'all are like me. You see, I need some accountability when it comes to self-care and exercise. Left to my own devices, I will just think about and plan to make healthy changes in my attitudes, actions, and habits rather than actually doing the work that will bring better holistic health to my life. That's why we created the Ben and Travis Facebook group. The group began as an accountability group for holistic health. We host different challenges throughout the year on this platform that make it easier for our group members to stick to their plan and reach their goals. This group is an encouraging and challenging team atmosphere. Check out what Chuck from Iowa had to say about our first Facebook group challenge. I feel better than I have felt in about 10 years. I feel younger and leaner and better about myself, and I'm overall healthier in mind, body, and soul. Thanks to the Lord for guiding me to the Batify Challenge. So hop on over to facebook.com/groups/Ben and Travis to join. You don't want to miss our upcoming November challenge. We're calling it the most grateful Thanksgiving ever. In this challenge, we're going to work on mindset and happiness with some tips from Jeff Olson's book, The Slight Edge. We believe this challenge has the power to truly transform mental health, and we are excited for our community to be a part of it. Again, just go to facebook.com/groups/Ben and Travis to join. We can't wait to see you there.
As we get ready to kind of close out our first episode, I'm going to ask if Whitney's got any good Coach West stories that might be shareable here to wrap up episode 1.
Well, at my age, I probably won't remember what she's talking about. So
I don't know if I have any specific stories. I just remember a lot of dodgeball, a whole lot of dodgeball.
See, the guys would appreciate that. I don't think the ladies necessarily enjoyed that as much as I thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
I remember a whole lot of dodgeball. I do have a question I want to slip in there for Coach West, if that's okay with you guys.
Fire away.
I've been praying for you guys. I know I saw on Facebook that your dad passed away here recently. But I read your post here recently when you were out in Oklahoma for the funeral. Something really stuck out to me. You were talking about how proud your dad was of you for writing this book, and in the cover of it, you dedicated it to Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in your post that just a lot of things, you could just see God's hand throughout a lot of things in the timing of how the book got out and the fact that your dad got to see it. Could you tell us some of those stories? I love to hear those stories where God lines things up and you just feel like, hey, he has a plan and I matter. Like my story matters and my family's story matters.
Well, oddly enough, I really don't know if this book would have happened if we hadn't had this hiatus with COVID, just to be honest with you, because as y'all know, as educators, it's just hard to find the time in the day. And I was piecing together, bits and pieces here and there. But if you write a story at a time and you've got to get up, 55,000, 65,000 words to get a book done, it just takes a while, And so kind of, the fact that happened and I was able to put it together and and that's not even the half of the story. I mean, you got to find a publisher and a formatter and somebody to do the back and the front covers. And it's not just like you write a bunch of words and you got a book there, and that takes time. And so the fact that Dad was still here to see that come to fruition, it really sits well with me. So um, he actually passed last Sunday, so we're sitting on a week. So I'm getting in, a lot of first things that I've done, without my dad here. But yeah, it was. And he was, man, he was just so happy about that.
That's awesome.
So,
But I'm really glad he got to see it too. It's really something. You said it's like you're Bill Shakespeare himself, but he should have. I mean, he had a lot to be proud of. It's a really good book that you've put together.
And I, in his memory, I really want to do a second one, and I've got the material to do it, and I'm gonna. I'm going to try to get full bore ahead on that, and just because I know he would be super proud of that too. So because a lot of it he was around to witness and see and read, and every time I would post something, I'd usually get a message from him on Facebook like that's stupid. Did that really happen? Or something a real dad would say to you. But he had a great sense of humor. I think he passed that down, and my brother and I both see humor in everyday life, man. And I think that's really, I think God puts that in us to do that, because if he didn't, every day would be almost too difficult to handle. So it is good to laugh at the end of the day.
Where can we get your book, The Smell of Funny? Yeah,
there's an online shop that I like to use that has the book. It's OklahomaBooksOnline.com. That is OklahomaBooksOnline.com, just like it sounds right there. But yeah, the guy who put the book together for me, he actually has a service in which he sells it. It is available on Amazon, but I would much rather sell it through a small business as I would through Amazon. And I don't even want to get into the where's, why's, and how's on that. But yeah, OklahomaBooksOnline.com. And you just go to the author's page and click down on Matt West, and it'll tell a little bit about myself, my family, and the book, and you have an option to purchase it there.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.